Mr. Hoffman.
Yes, sir.
Tax increment financing, called TIF, is a powerful economic development tool because it lets the tax dollars from improvements in the TIF district be used to pay for street, water, sewer, and other infrastructure for the new development. But by funneling all of the tax dollars from this new tax base to pay for the infrastructure, the school district and other tax bodies get nothing from the new tax base and have to raise their levy. This can result in a backdoor tax hike. If elected, how would you direct the city to manage use of TIF and TIF districts to take advantage of this powerful economic development tool, but yet minimize the backdoor tax hike from the increased levies that the school district and other tax bodies are forced to do because they do not receive revenue from the new tax base created with TIF?
Well, that was a tough question, wasn't it, folks?
I can ask you to repeat it.
A long one, too. My answer will probably be shorter than your question. Tax increment financing, as evidenced by the question, is a very complicated and in some ways a cumbersome process. Now, intent in your question was the assumption there that the city tends to be very aggressive in its TIF policy. I would agree with that, and that's true. And you would find other municipalities throughout Iowa, in fact, that would say Sioux City is a TIF abuser in some ways, depending on their perspective. But in essence, it is the one tool that cities have the authority and the discretion to use as an economic development tool, an incentive. Now, I would argue with you on the point on the schools and the county, for instance, not receiving the proportionate revenues, because when those TIF values are released, and the infrastructure improvements and the economic development that occurs within it, they eventually do receive those and receive those in spades beyond what they would originally have. So in essence, it's not a level playing field. The larger problem with the schools in particular is that of property tax equity and equalization. And that's an issue that I think our mayor and our city council needs to lock arms with our school board in particular, and we need to push the state for reform of that. TIF is not the problem that's causing all of the ills within financing for the schools and the counties. It is, in essence, property tax equalization in which some of our sales tax revenues are being reallocated and a whole host of other problems.
All right, Mr. Gary.
There's a premise within your question as though TIF is part of the problem, and I fundamentally disagree. TIF is part of the solution to our low tax base and our ability to attract jobs. It is one tool in the toolbox that if used wisely and used consistently, which I believe we have within City Hall, we grow our tax base, and within many of the budgets that I've seen over the last 4 years of my experience, we've had record releases year after year into our property tax pool for the county and the city and the school to share. The reality is city government has many of the tools and many of the responsibilities put on it by the voters to ensure that we grow our tax base and add jobs. So we are the key vehicle by which a lot of the times economic development happens. Tax increment financing is simply taking the taxes that are newly created from a development that may never have happened in the first place without it, and funnel it into the project for a few years, whether that be infrastructure or creation of jobs or growing tax base for a few years, and then releasing it. I believe that projects and tax base have expanded as a result of tax increment financing and wouldn't be expanding as quickly have we not had this tool in our toolbox. So I fundamentally disagree with any premise that tax increment financing is part of the problem. It's part of the solution. We need to be diligent with it. We need to be good stewards. I believe we have been, and I believe that as you look over our budgets and look over our economic development, we have progressively gotten better in our jobs. We've grown our tax base, our sales tax. Those are all the results of at least one of the tools, and that is TIF.
Mr. Rochester?
With the competition that we have with South Dakota and Nebraska, TIF is one of the few tools that we do have to use to obviously help with development, to help the TIF areas in some of the older developments, and it does widen the tax base. I mean, everything that both of these gentlemen had said is true, and TIF is definitely a part of the solution. I hate to repeat everything they're saying, but they kind of took everything I wanted to say. But ultimately, TIF is a great program. It's something I would support. I think it works great. I know the city utilizes it. There's some flexibility in TIF and where they can utilize the development and where they can put infrastructure and where they can encourage new development in areas of town that really need the help. And I think it's a great program, and I would support it fully.
Mr. Hobart.
Well, TIF is a common development used in Iowa, as everybody has stated so far. My understanding in a recent conversation with an individual who I consider to be an expert on TIF is that the city can release the school and county entities' portion of the TIF at a set period of time, and I would be for that particular process, to release the school board's portion as well as the county's portion. If the city wants to retain the city's balance for future development, I'd be for that. If I've misunderstood that, then I would be for a change in the law that would allow the city to release that portion to those taxing entities.